All right. Okay. Welcome everyone to the first episode of The Lockdown, featuring our special guest, Daniel Pignataro, who also goes as D Pigs, if you know him like that. All right. We're joined by our TP producer, Nicholas Reese, and our host, Jesse Georgie. I will be producing the show. And this is the first ever episode of The Lockdown, basically a concept to keep you entertained during quarantine. So, Daniel, how's it going in these times of worry?
It's good, man. It's we're at the phase now where we're starting to get a little bit antsy inside, but the first little bit was fun because I'm a homebody, so I kind of like staying at home. But now we're at that phase where you're kind of itching to get out, but it's obviously for the better, safety first. So hopefully not too much more of this lockdown, but definitely getting a little bit antsy.
Yeah, for sure. Totally feel that. How about you guys, Jesse and Nick?
Yeah, I mean, like it's interesting. I'd agree with Pigs. I'm kind of a homebody myself. I like to stay inside, but I was just like I've been thinking the last few days, the little things that we take for granted, like what I would do right now to just go outside and play basketball with some of the boys. Like it would change everything. Like just these little things that we don't really think about that we do every single day, and now we can't do them. So just got to be thankful for what we got.
Yeah, I feel like every day is literally the same, and it's getting pretty weird that way. Like I'm just living the same day over and over again. But yeah, I mean, I feel like my space is getting bigger too. Like going downstairs is like becoming, like going to a different place, if that makes any sense. So things are getting weird, but trying to keep in touch with people and just try to stay sane as much as possible.
D Pigs, you're our first guest on the show, and basically you've been working at Bar Down for some time now, and we basically wanted to touch upon that and see how that's been going and see how you've transitioned to working at home, if you are still working at home for Bar Down.
Yeah, so we basically shifted operations to pretty much completely remote. I want to say basically the week after March 11th, because March 11th is kind of the doomsday that we refer to. Obviously, the NBA shutting down was kind of the first domino to fall. And then within the next week, we were basically working remotely. So there was a quick turnaround. We're super lucky in the sense that we are able to still work. Like I'm super lucky the fact that I'm still working right now. I know a lot of people are without jobs, so obviously really grateful about that.
Yeah.
But it's been difficult. We've, and for one, with no sports happening, that's obviously a huge challenge because you hear the word, this is so unprecedented over and over again, but it really is. There's never been a time in human history, for that matter, that all sports have completely shut down, like in the history of professional sports. So we're, like I can't lie, we're obviously looking for different ways and different angles to approach things. And obviously people are spending more time on social media. So there's a couple opportunities in that, but it's difficult finding things to do. It's difficult finding content and curating content with people kind of being locked up inside. So it's been hard, but it's a good learning curve. Like obviously communication is key, and we've been doing our best to kind of keep in the loop with things, and everybody's been helping each other out. Anything they find online that we can share out, we kind of pass it through, and trying to find different angles on different stories is basically our number one priority right now. And so it's fun in the sense that you have to kind of challenge yourself to find different things and different stories to tackle, but at the same time it's really difficult because we're in a weird situation for sure.
So I just wanted to ask a lot of people. So you're according to your LinkedIn, I did a little bit of research, is social content producer with TSN, and a lot of people, they hear the words like content producer, content creator, and they don't really know exactly what that means. So could you kind of give us a little bit more in detail, like what a typical day would look like for you? Maybe a little bit what a regular day was before the social distancing, before March 11th, and kind of what it looks like now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of varies. Like I kind of do a bunch of things with us. So I essentially create content for social media, special events, and sometimes for broadcast. So essentially when I'm doing things for Bar Down or our TSN social, I generally focus on design, graphic design. But throughout the day, we're turning over content that comes in, whether it be breaking news or we're curating videos that we see online between athletes or people at home who are just doing cool things, and we're sharing that out to social, trying to generate as much engagement as possible. But we're also managing our own social channels with Bar Down. So any YouTube videos that come out that need to be captioned, I'll help out with, or any engagement posts that you see on Bar Down often come from myself or one of the other graphic designers that I work with. So it's I generally focus on design, for other people who work with us. So a lot of you guys might know, Jesse or Julia, Corwin, Luca, all those guys. They're primarily writers, so they'll actually post onto the website and curate content as well, and be posting on our social and keeping up with whatever is going on during the day, whether it be news or anything like that. So we're essentially, the main thing I would say is we're just trying to generate engagement and start a conversation and really try to bring people to our pages and focus on what we have, because the one thing about social media is super accessible, and obviously the low cost to entry. Anybody can start it. You guys right here are starting your own podcast, but at the same time, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of big players. You have the Bleacher Reports of the world, the ESPNs of the world, the Sportsnets of the world, who are all fighting for that same space. So trying to stay above the rest, whether it be in the quality of your work or the content that you're sharing, is really the primary goal. So I'm working on stuff with that. And without sports, really, there's, it might seem like there's nothing to do, but frankly there is, because you have to look forward into what you can do. So this week we have the NFL draft coming up, and that's really our main focus, trying to bring people what they want from the NFL draft, because frankly, that's the only thing most people are looking forward to, like besides the horse and NBA horse thing. That's really the big thing of this week and for the next little while. So kind of keeping up with whatever's trending in the world of social, and creating content that people are going to want to consume.
I wonder, during your first week at Bar Down or TSN, what was the learning curve to, producing content in like such a fast-paced environment, because you are trying to get out as quickly as possible?
Yeah, speed is super key. And my boss, Dave Cricks, when I was brought on, basically said, like, we're looking for the quality of your work, but really above all, we're looking for speed, because being first on anything in social is one of the biggest priorities. You want to beat the competition so that people know you're the page they want to go to see what's happening in real time. So that was really key. And a lot of young designers will focus on the quality of their work and making sure everything's perfect, and not really speeding up their workflow in the ways that it should be. So like, I won't get crazy technical, but like cutting out players and finding overlays and stuff, for example, like as you kind of go into things and as you get a bit more experience, you'll just find your workflow sped up. You're quicker at using software and using Photoshop or After Effects, whatever you're using. So being able to adapt quickly is really key, but also being open to learning new things and teaching yourself. Like, there's been a lot of times where I've wanted to do something and I've literally had to quickly skim through a YouTube video at work or before work just to see how to do it. And like, just being able to adapt and learn on the fly is really, really important, because like, there's not a lot of time to stay behind the competition. Like, you got to be the first, or you want to try to be the first at all times, whatever you're doing, right? And if you're sacrificing some of the quality of your work, so be it, because that's what people are looking for. They want to be following the page that's first to all the news, right? There's been a lot of pieces that I've put out that I thought were genius. Like, and I'm obviously a big Drake guy, so anytime I put like an OVO reference or a Drake reference in a piece that goes out, I'm like, oh, this is gonna blow up for sure. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, I was pushing it on my own when the Raptors were in the playoffs. And like, when the playoffs come around, I've only worked one real playoff run with the Raptors and the Leafs last year and everything else. But the playoffs are like a different beast. Like, you just step up in everything you do. Your work just becomes better. Your workflow is quicker. You just kind of step up because there's so much more competition. There's so many more eyeballs. And you just get generally more creative. You're just a little bit more inspired, especially compared to times like this where you're kind of in the downswing of creativity. But I remember I put out a graphic where it was literally the Toronto Raptors riding a wave and the Milwaukee Bucks were sinking. And I had the 6 on the wave sign in the corner of it that Frings used to have. It was like Drake's old sign. And like, you had the whole skyline in the back. Drake was in it. Kawhi's in it. I was like, this is going to blow up. And it like didn't really do that well. But meanwhile, I'll put out like a breaking news graphic for, if like if there's a big trade in the NHL, and people will blow it up because it's breaking news, right? Like, so, and if you're first on it, especially, they just share it instantly. So it is a little bit of testament as to like how important being first on things in social media is, because obviously people value that. But at the same time, creativity is really important too, because people look for that too. And you find like people like Bleacher Report are obviously super creative, or a lot of the guys that we have and I work with at TSN are like just pushing constant creative work. And it's really important to do that because it draws eyeballs, and that's really the main goal.
So in terms of like you were talking before about Photoshop and After Effects and different skills that you're eventually going to need to possess if you want to be in the position that you're currently in, what would you say is the most important skill or asset to have? Is it something like Photoshop or After Effects? Or is that something that, you know, everyone kind of picks up on the way, or is it something else?
Yeah, so it's a tough question because I'm going to try not to be as like cliche as possible, because you hear, you know, coming into things, and especially in our program, like a lot of our profs will say, just, you got to be a team player, you got to be willing to learn. I don't really want to go down that path, but in a sense they're right, because if you're somebody who's fun to work with and is like really passionate about what you're doing, you're going to be able to have that attitude that you just want to constantly learn and try new things, right? And I came into this opportunity like not even close to where I am today with design or animation, or anything like that. Even like video editing, it's, you just kind of learn on the fly. So having a good attitude is really important. But I would say if you're going to try to zero in a program, knowing Photoshop should really be the base for everything, because you build off of that in the entire Adobe suite. And knowing graphic design is a huge asset, especially in today's society, just because so many employers are looking for creativity. And I feel like you can harness that skill with graphic design the best, as opposed to video editing and animation, just because it's so much more accessible. Like you can quickly pull together something on Photoshop, as opposed to having to like shoot a video or like get assets for an animation and then export and blah, blah, blah. So I would say if you're going to zero in on a program, Photoshop should be the base. It's kind of like learning an instrument. Like piano is generally regarded as like the base instrument. Once you learn piano, it's easier to learn guitar and all the other ones. And I would say Photoshop would work in the same sense. But it depends on what you want to do. Like I would just say, try to do as many things as you can, be like your own little workhorse, but constantly be learning new things, and just try to like get as many reps as you can. Like if it means starting up a podcast or a video series like this, just so you guys can get some editing, like some editing practice, or even like creating graphics for local people. Like I worked on, my buddy has a page, a football page, Catch the Blitz. I'll link it. And it has like 50,000 followers. And I did a lot of work for him just for free, just to kind of get my name out there and practice a little bit. Or like I did work for the Ryerson baseball team for a little bit. I would try to put stuff towards Rams Live as much as possible. And then like obviously volunteering on Rams Live is key, just to get on air reps in. Like getting reps in, I can't emphasize it enough, is just super important. And if you do good work, people will notice it. And if you're a good person and someone who's fun to work with as well, and just has a good attitude, people also, that'll be rewarded in the long run as well. So just having that attitude, and obviously like getting reps in and doing as many things as possible is the best way to go about it. But yeah, like Photoshop, I would say, is like the base program. And I would say it's the most important. I wouldn't even say it's my favorite, but I would say it's the most important.
For sure. I remember those days when we were in first year. I used to go to the computer lab on Saturdays, and you were there, and you were doing graphics with Mose and Grant and everyone. You're like, "Hey guys, graphics sesh tomorrow." And I was just like, see how
like
clutch
that
it
was
becomes.
our thing. People, I guess I'm kind of graduating now. It's really bittersweet, but our whole thing was that computer lab was room 229 in the RCC. And our whole shtick was, in our little bit, was we called it Club 229, because we would be there like Friday nights and Saturday nights. We wouldn't be out in the bar. We'd be at the Club 229. And we would always be joking around. That was like our little bar. We'd be like, "Oh, you got bottle service at Club 229 tonight?" Like, and people would be like, "Where's Club 229 on King Street?" We're like, "No, it's the RCC." Like, it was just our little shtick. But like I said, like we had to sacrifice some nights kind of perfecting our craft. And Mosey Desmoulins, you mentioned him, is a testament to that, because Mose, and he probably won't watch this, because who knows where he is in Thunder Bay right now. But I will say, like, he's probably the most, one of, if not the most talented designers and video editors that I know, and just ultimately the most creative person in that space. Like, he can turn around content so easily and fluid. Like, it's just so fluid when you give him something to do, and he's always working on new ways to, have a new look and change the way he works. And that's something people can aspire to do, like constantly be changing the way your content looks, right? Like having, don't be too consistent in the way your graphics or your video design or your video editing is, because then it kind of gets stagnant and people will turn towards other, because there's so many options online right now. And Mosey does a great job of changing up his look constantly. But like I said, like we would sit for hours in Club 229 and perfecting our craft, and it's definitely led to really good opportunities.
And all this hard work has gotten you to Bar Down, obviously, where you even appeared in a quiz which,
Yeah.
growing up, watching the quiz is like, it's like the coolest thing ever to be on it. And you see some people that have been in our program that are on it, and you're like, wow, that's so sick. And not like, you and Julia, you're only a year older than us in terms of grades. And we're like, wow, like they're on it. That's like something we can strive for. So that's gotten
Yeah.
you there. So you just want to share your experience on being on the infamous Bar Down quiz.
I will. So I was brought on basically, I will say about a year ago, like for sure at Bar Down. Like I was pretty much not permanent, not full time, but like I was brought onto the team really for the playoffs. And throughout that whole thing, like I was starstruck, kind of the same way as you would be. Like for you see these quizzes and you see all these guys, and you have like Jay and Dan walking by you on a night-to-night basis, and you're kind of starstruck, right? Like these are guys you looked up to. Jay's book is somewhere on that bookshelf, both of them, I think. So they're guys you look up to, and you kind of, when you get to a certain point, you there's two ways the road can go, and that's either you can kind of like burn out and kind of give up on things, or you can use that passion to keep going. And I kind of hit that point where you just get so passionate about what you're doing, and you want to be supportive for everybody around you who's kind of helped you to this place and led you there, that you want to keep working. And guys like Daniel Z at Bar Down, who lead the quizzes, that's kind of his thing. Like that was, when I walked in and met him, I was like, oh my God, like that's him, right? Like, and you want to kind of work harder to keep those guys going. So when I led my practicum this year, we did a live quiz at the Hockey Hall of Fame as part of our practicum, which you guys will do in September, barring everything that's going on right now. I really hope you guys get a chance to go back.
Hopefully.
But I led the team in doing a live quiz at the Hockey Hall of Fame, and proceeds went to charity. And you kind of get that sense of like how important it is to all these guys and to the whole Bar Down team, just those quizzes in general. And you really want to help them put on a good show, because really it's meant so much to the brand and to so many people like you guys, right? So that pushes you as well. Like it pushed me to make sure these guys had all the assets they needed to put on this good show, to kind of give back to them, because they give you so many memories and so much good content to watch. And they work so hard every single one of those different videos, right? Like it's a lot of work that goes into editing that thing, and you guys are all editors. But so it's just really important to work hard, and you want to just show people that you're capable as well. And then when I was actually in it kind of caught me off guard, because it's like it just kind of hits you, like you're sitting in front of the lights, and he has DZ has literally the voice behind the camera, and you're like, oh my God, I'm sitting in this seat right now, like this is really, really cool. And it's like you really have like a sort of reverence towards it, like this, you have like a sense of pride that you actually made it into one of those. And it's really cool. You really you're really thankful that they gave you the opportunity, and they've obviously done a great work. I'm kind of going off right now, but basically it's, I will say about the quiz, it's really nerve wracking, and people don't realize like a lot of those questions, a lot of times I'll be watching like a hockey one, and Sam will be out in the first question. It'll be like an easy one, like what's the name of the Toronto Maple Leafs mascot? Like it's Carlton the Bear, and Sam will be like, I think it's Yuppie. And then when you sit in front of the lights, you're like, I kind of get why they freak out a little bit, because like all the lights on you, you got the camera right in front of you, like it's kind of nerve wracking. So it does hit you a little bit. But it is really, really fun. It's a really fun process to be a part of. And, when you watch the final product, it's really cool. And they do a great job doing all those.
You did that. You did pretty well on it though.
I did. I'm not that much of a basketball guy. Like my main sport by far is baseball. Like I follow baseball the most of anything. And then I would say second is probably football, then hockey, then basketball. So considering like I kind of pulled some names, I was like, I didn't even know I knew that name, and I was pulling them out left, right, and center. But it was fun. It was a good topic too. Like you can have fun with that one. So it was good.
Why do you think they do so well on social media and on YouTube? Like why do you think they're so successful?
I think first and foremost, the reason, so that was only the second basketball one. They're generally hockey based, and there's such a big market in Canada for hockey. And, TSN and Sportsnet obviously know that. Like there was the deal a couple of years ago with all the rights moving to Rogers, and not all the rights, but most of them. And I think people just understand, like there's such a big market for it. And anytime somebody kind of steps away from the traditional cookie cutter hockey broadcast, it gets a lot of engagement, because as we know, hockey's very suit and tie. Like you got players don't have the same opportunity to express themselves the same way they do in basketball. Like if Sidney Crosby showed up in a Russell Westbrook cut t-shirt one day, the world would literally be up in flames, right? So when somebody kind of goes off the grid a little bit with hockey content, I think people really value that. And that's why the quiz, I think, kind of did well at the first bit. Like it was, I don't want to say average guys, but they were kind of average guys. Like Jesse Pollock kind of came in and, was just himself and talked about hockey for a little bit. And people obviously valued the characters that were there. Like, and I value the characters that are there too. They're all great guys and they're all hilarious in their own way. And people valued that just because it wasn't the traditional cookie cutter hockey content that we've been getting our whole lives, right? So that's why it's kind of blown up.
I think a big conversation that's being had is like in any industry is that people are working from home, and that when this passes, that there's going to be a lot more jobs being worked from home. And you kind of mentioned that so much of like Bar Down and your like social team is like, having that person-to-person interaction, and that's kind of what's bred characters and created great content. But I'm wondering if, obviously no one knows what's going to happen, and we can't really decide, but I'm wondering if you actually see this working out in the long term on a smaller scale within a team, whether it's from a social perspective or anything, working from home.
Yeah, and that's like, I've been thinking the same thing, because especially for small scale businesses, like obviously less overhead cost if they can work completely remote, and it'll save a lot of money. And people can do, like, my job can be done at home straight up, but you really do lose that connection when you're not in the office with the guys. Like I miss those guys and girls way a ton just in general, because they're all so great. But you've seen TikTok is the latest one, right? TikTok's the latest social media network app, and we have really tried to push that one over the last 3 or 4 months because it's really taking off just in general, and there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
So you were talking about graduation earlier, and obviously the ceremony at least is on hold because of the pandemic going on. So do you know, like, what have they told you is going on in terms of graduation?
So the last we heard was it was going to be postponed until the fall. And in all honesty, like, I don't see that happening. Like there's articles in the New York Times now saying live sports, us being at live sport events, won't happen until 2022. And I don't want to believe it, but you also have to take a bit of a realist look at things and kind of understand that's the way things are going, especially with the lack of a vaccine. And I won't get crazy into news, like we're not here to talk about that. But the last time we heard was the fall. I don't see that happening. So I'm not really sure what the plan is going forward. I do hope we get a ceremony, because I think right now the one thing that we're lacking from our year is just closure. Like we kind of had everything end abruptly. And that's what's really been hurting us the most, because we haven't really had a chance to say bye to a lot of our friends. Like I got lucky. I was able to go for brunch with Grant, because you guys know Grant Weaver lives in the States. I was lucky to kind of say bye to him over brunch one day, the day he was going to leave. With like, we literally organized it the day before, because it's when they canceled school. But there's people like, Kyle Moore in my year, for example, lives out in New Brunswick. Like I'm not sure when he'll be back. I never really got a real chance to say bye to him. It's obviously a good friend of mine. Same with like Christian Steeds or Mosey Des Moulins. Like Moses from Thunder Bay, Christian's from Winnipeg. So who knows when all these guys, I'm going to see them next. And you're close. Our whole program is super close all 4 years, right? Because there's only a cohort of 70 to 80 people each year. So you're obviously really close to those people, and you kind of hope that you just get that closure of a graduation ceremony or one final class or one day. So that's the most difficult thing. But so I'm hoping they can pull it out, even if it's like a year late. I think it's just kind of nice to come back and see everybody. But at the same time, like, you got to understand you might not have the physical capabilities or the financial capabilities to hold things off that long. So I get it, but yeah.
Yeah, I know I have a few friends who are graduating this year, and they were saying the exact same thing. They like, it doesn't feel like they're done, because it was basically like, I still remember the day that we got the notice that Ryerson was closing its doors, as were all the other universities around Ontario and now around the world. And it was just like it was just like that, like snap a finger and boom, next day no classes, you don't get to see anybody. So yeah, I just feel like you need to get some sort of closure, and hopefully it does get postponed, the ceremony. But like you said, there's a lot of questions right now, not enough answers.
Yeah, and fourth year is difficult because in third year university, especially our program, was my favorite year by far, because you're in class with your friends a lot, and you also have a lot of freedom to take on personal projects, and there's a lot of different opportunities for third year students to kind of advance your career, and you guys know that because you're basically done now. But fourth year is different because you're not in class. Like we had really one traditional class together in first semester with the whole group. but you're doing practicum, so you don't really see each other. And then you're doing internship second semester, so you don't really see each other. So it's difficult because you're planning all these things like, the last 2 weeks of school, we're going to go out this day, and then we're going to go for brunch this day, and then we're going to, have our final class here, and then we're going to go home. Like, you're kind of planning all these things. Like, I was planning a trip to Vancouver with my friend Nick and Isabel, and that obviously got canceled with everything that's going on. So it's just difficult because, the whole year you're kind of planning on the end because, you're not going to see each other in the middle of it. And then the end is kind of taken away from you. And it's a selfish way to look at things because, there's so much going on in the world right now. And there's so many people who are impacted, and, people are like, it's a really sad thing. And it's a once in 100-year occurrence. Like, this has the possibility to be as impactful as a world war with the death toll and the people affected. The economy is like breaking down completely. So it's really selfish way to look at things. But at the same time, like, me and my friend and I, Max, who you guys also know, we were talking last night, and he basically said, really, if you think about it, this is the worst year to graduate as a university student, or a high school student for that matter, within the last 100 years, like, or since the war, really, because even in the 2008 crisis, people could still go outside. Like, you could go outside and have a drink with your friends. You can't even do that anymore, right? So never mind the fact that people are going to have a difficult time finding jobs. So it's difficult.
Do you, like, looking back from where you were in first year, where did you expect yourself to be where you're at now? Or, has anything changed along the way? And what was that for you?
Yeah, I definitely didn't expect myself to be where I'm at, like that, plain and simple. I would only hope that I would be able to work for free to just as what I was doing. Like, it's, and you kind of have your options open all throughout university, and I still do have options open. Like, I'm always kind of looking for new opportunities, whether it be volunteer based or whatever. And, when you're in first and second year, you're kind of waiting to see what you're going to fall in love with. And the cool thing about our program is there's so many different routes to take. And the possibilities are endless. I did the university fair. I was like our our representative at the university fair in second and third year. And I remember when I was in third year, me and Julia Teixeira did it together. And we just kept saying to people who had questions about the program, like, it's literally whatever you make it. Like, we have people from our cohort who are doing teachers college, people applying to law school, people who want to get into politics. Like, there's people who don't want to do anything with sports. And, and there's so much that we learn. Like, I remember every week in second year, I'd want to do something different with my life. Like, one week I'd want to be a producer, and the next week I'd want to be a director, then the next week I would want to be a font operator, then I'd want to be a designer. Like, so it's so different. Then I wanted to like get into business. Like, every week it was like something different because there's so many different things you can do. So you kind of keep your options open. I had no idea what I wanted to do in second year, really even in third year. And I still don't even know where I want to go after this whole, this is all said and done. Like, I don't know what my next step will be. So I really don't know. I didn't expect myself to be here. And I don't know where I'm going to be in a little bit. I hate the 5-year question. I'm sorry if you guys are going to ask me, give us the 5-year plan, where you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years. I hate that question. I'll answer it if you want me to, but I hate it because I really have no idea. And look at something like this, right? Like, we would have never seen a pandemic coming in February. And we knew this coronavirus was coming, but we never had any idea they would shut down every sports league. The economy would shut down. School would be completely closed. We'd have no grad on March 10th. We didn't even know. We had no idea. It wasn't really until the NBA shut down, we said, oh, it just got real, right? And then it kind of hit us. So things can change so quickly in the world. You really have no idea, but you would hope to be doing something you love, and I love what I do right now.
That's good. It's basically it just goes to show that you can plan all you want in life, but sometimes you just got to take it day by day. So to wrap it all up, the final question I have is basically what's the media side? Like, what's the first thing you're gonna do when this is all over?
Oh man, my friends and I, we have a group chat going, and the first phase was like, there was the first couple of weeks or so. It's funny that people talk about shopping phases. So the first phase of shopping was toilet paper and paper products. And now they're moving into hair care products because, as you can see, I have an absolute loaf on my head right now. Like, I need a haircut worse than the next guy. But it's funny that they talk about the shopping things because the same thing I think kind of happens to all of us in the way that we talk to each other. So the first phase was like, who's playing Call of Duty right now? Who's playing PS4? Or like the second phase, like, oh, who's bored? Who's bored right now? Now we're in the phase of like, man, boys, like, I miss you guys. We're like sending old videos to like relive old summers because now I think it's hitting us. Like, we may not get the same summer as we're used to. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is give all my friends a big hug and, you know, just like sit down with them, because I think the one thing that we can take away from this, and I'll end off with this, is Drake was on a live stream a couple nights ago, and he talked about how this has really given us a chance to just sit down and like show love to one another and, you know, work on the things we wanted to work on before. And then also Diddy was on Diddy's live stream, but Diddy was on Quarantine Radio by Tory Lanez. We can talk about that too, because that's one of the best things to come out of this as well. But he was on Quarantine Radio and he said, you know, this is like, we're in timeout a little bit. There's like a higher power involved here and we're in timeout. And frankly, like, you hear it and it's cliche, but everything does happen for a reason, I think. And this is a good time to just kind of reflect on where we're at. I think since we were just moving a little bit too quick as a society, like we weren't really enjoying what we had in front of us. And we're so lucky to live the life that we live here. And we're so lucky to be able to work in sports and do what we love to do, that this is a good chance to just sit down, reflect, and do what you guys are doing here. Like, just kind of open up about things and, you know, reflect on where we're at and appreciate when we're out of this, because we will get out of this and someone will figure something out. But, you know, when we're out of this, we'll appreciate things a lot more. We'll appreciate those nights out, having drinks with friends, or like those bonfires we have at night that we took for granted, simple stuff like that. And just living in Canada, just like living in such a great place, we'll appreciate all that. So the first thing I'm doing is giving all my friends and family a big hug, because I think out of everything, I really miss them the most. And I'm also giving my barber a really big hug too, because I miss him a lot as well. So yeah.
A big hug and a big tip.
Yeah, she will definitely get a big tip, because trust me, it's going to take a while to work through this too.
Yeah. All right. Well, Daniel, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. We're glad you're doing good, and hopefully we can all get outside as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure. We'll run some basketball when we're out of this, for sure, all of us. So thanks for having me on. This was fun, guys. I'm looking forward to the series.
Very much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.